Since the inception of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change UNFCCC Conference of Parties in 1992, there has been a lot of queries by experts and vulnerable countries about the annual ritual. One of the queries is that the UNFCCC policies as currently being implemented are not yet institutionalized in the countries to parties, expected to rekindle the debate on climate change and financing for the consequences in the public interest that could benefit ideas based on the divergent perspectives of enthusiasts and critics of the program. The UNFCCC needs to harmonize the diverse requirements of parties to transform climate financing into a sustainable project directed to resilience, adaptation, and sustainability. Additionally, UNFCCC needs to direct climate financing to the assistance and strengthening of vulnerable entities across the world. That is the point that's often lost on many industrialized nations. The category of countries to benefit from climate financing is quite different from the category of those who should be target of other socio-economic interventions, and as climate financing should be framed for the poor and vulnerable countries. For instance, impoverished countries ravaged by flooding will be daily confronted with hunger. They will not be the typical nations for mitigation, as the impoverished nations need immediate intervention. That's why the right policy debate will bring about clarity on the idea of climate financing. The industrialized nations must take definite positions on climate financing and within a broad climate crisis intervention strategy, because it costs a lot to execute climate financing programs in a widespread manner. This is because when countries can adapt to climate crisis, climate financing will work better as the miserable will become resilient. In this regard, it's considered that loss and damage are late in coming given the centrality of carbon emissions and climate change crisis alleviation of the UNFCCC. There was a lot of hesitation on the part of the industrialized nations before this form of climate financing was agreed. Besides, the trajectory of implementation is also reflective of the numerous contradictions in the deadline and pathology of the UNFCCC and climate financing. Now, the necessary debate on climate financing must reckon with previous flaws in the implementation, as some pertinent questions cannot be ignored. They include institutional structures, integrity, transparency, and accountability in the course of implementation. The implementation of loss and damage financing should therefore help in removing these flaws for the purpose of effective policy implementation. When implemented honestly and competently, loss and damage could significantly help the cause of climate financing.